Hello, today we're going to talk to you about how much I can borrow from a guarantor lender. Now, when you go and apply for a guarantor loan, this is probably the first thing that you think about. You think about, well, how much can I actually borrow? You know, £500, £1,000, £5,000. Will I just try and apply for as much as I can get? Or, do I have a specific purchase, like an emergency? Or do I want to pay for, a holiday, and do I want, £2,000, £3,000 specifically? However, how much you can borrow will depend on a number of things. So, looking at the different guarantor lenders that we review on Guarantor Loan Comparison, firstly, it does depend on the lender. Some lenders allow you to kind of borrow up to £12,000, but some have a maximum of like £500 or £750. So, if you are going for the higher amounts, then you have to look at those types of lenders. If you're looking for the lower amounts, then you have to look at those types of lenders. Every lender has their own kind of criteria, how they score people, their own different type of, how they do their checks and so forth. So you may be able to get X amount from one, but Y amount from another, just depending on their criteria. Obviously, you must be cautious about, getting more than one guarantor loan open, because this does, obviously, increase the number of payments that you have and can make it difficult to repay if you haven't planned it out carefully. Next, one of the biggest things that determines how much you can borrow is about your guarantor. It's all about having a guarantor who has a good credit history. Someone who is very reliable, has a good kind of record of paying other loans on time, doesn't have a lot of loans outstanding, doesn't have a high debt to loan ratio. Because when the guarantor lenders run their checks and they do a credit check using someone like Equifax on you and the guarantor, seeing that there's a guarantor who has a very good credit rating is very, very positive for them. Because they think that, if the main borrower can't repay that loan, at least there's a backup, and this guy has a really, really good track record, so we can probably recover our funds. So if you have a guarantor with a good credit rating, then you are likely to be able to borrow that little bit more that you want. The next thing is affordability. These are the different measures that lenders take out to match how much you wish to borrow with what you can afford to repay. Guarantor lenders are heavily regulated, and they need to kind of make sure they don't lend you too much, because then you'll struggle to repay. Just because you want £1,000 or £5,000, it may not be the most sensible thing if it's going to put you in arrears and put you in a worse financial position. So guarantor lenders need to check your employment and your income and outgoing, so they may request a copy of your payslip or bank statement, or for the very least ask you to kind of write down this stuff in your application form. They may also check this of the guarantor, because they don't want to have a guarantor who's unemployed. They need to make sure that the guarantor has also got finance available to cover the cost of your loan. So those who have good jobs, have been in their jobs for a number of years, have a high salary, and also a guarantor with a long-term employment and a higher salary, they will be able to hopefully borrow more. Finally, repeat customers can always borrow more, provided that they've paid on time. If you've applied for a loan for a year with a guarantor lender, you repaid it on time, you want to apply again, they probably will likely accept you, provided that you still pass the relative credit and affordability checks. If your financial position is worse, then they may feel, okay, this is not the right thing to do, we maybe shouldn't be lending to you. But if your credit score is intact, of course paying back your guarantor loan on time will improve your credit score. If you are in a better financial position, there's no reason why you can't borrow that extra bit more. So, but ultimately, because the criteria varies from lender to lender, the best thing to do is really just go see how much you can borrow. So don't apply for too many loans at once, because all the searches will then come up on your credit score, which isn't great. But you can try look at them and apply with the various lenders that we offer on our site, and you can get a feel of just how much you're allowed to borrow. Thank you.